This is the biggest government cover-up I have ever seen. This is the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century. I've only been alive 37 years, but I don't know of any other situation that involved a governor of a major American state, all his top officials, the health department, the environmental department, the treasury department, local city officials of a major American city of 100,000 people, local county officials, the EPA, add in Wall Street banks that were involved with this, ignoring major blinking red lights, ignoring major stop signs. Then once they drove 100 miles an hour past the blinking lights, past the stop signs, then covered up the car crash in real time. I don't know how you call that anything other than the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century. Frankly, I think this makes Watergate look like a picnic.
So in January of 2015, when we started What Are You Fighting For, I needed to come up with a Twitter handle. So we were going through the list and everything, and we settled on Flintgate. And the reasoning was because Watergate was taken. But now, 9 years after that, 10 years into this, it's definitely not Watergate, because Watergate people were held accountable. A president stepped down. Charges were held. People actually were held responsible, and nobody was actually harmed. Nobody was sick. So whatever you want to call Watergate times a million, because there's the initial water switch, then there's the cover-up.
Flint City officials insist Flint River water is good enough to drink, but it's been causing problems with issues at General Motors.
General Motors turning the tap off to the Flint River.
General Motors is making the best decision that they can. The Flint River is in fantastic shape.
Then there's the criminal cases being torpedoed, in my opinion, on purpose.
The judge threw out criminal charges against former state and city officials for their roles in the Flint water crisis.
So nobody had to face accountability. And then there's this, letting people just die.
Right when the Legionnaires' epidemic starts, the pneumonia death rate in Genesee goes up. It's likely that the Legionnaires' outbreak was bigger than that reported by official authorities.
What do you call that? What do you call a decade of repeated Watergates, repeated times that they're actually trying to, how I feel, kill us off, but while profiting?
You know, we talk about these systemic approaches to how we remove appendages in society, especially in a broken capitalist system where everything is driven by profit, and people who live in poor, desolate areas like Flint, Michigan, that, remember, Flint, Michigan at one time was the beacon of the United States. I mean, obviously it's multiple generations ago, but it goes to show you how these things can change. And there are people that are living in Flint even now in their, twilight years that lived in Flint when this was, the envy of a lot of the country. And they have seen how it's changed significantly since then. And so now what you're watching is how, like you said, all politics is local, and it all starts at the local level. And you look at these people in the, you can feel the corruption oozing out of their pores, the way that they, just kind of, say, well, this is just the price of doing business. And if we have to poison a population and kill, hundreds, if not thousands of people in the process, then that's what we're going to do. That's bad enough. But as you've pointed out time and again in your coverage over the past 8 years, it's the cover-up that makes this so much worse. They know what they're doing, and they're deliberately sweeping it under the rug. And this isn't a Republican thing. This is a uniparty thing. This is a capital thing where they are intersected at the point of it's all about the bottom line. And if what we have to do is destroy a population in order to finally gentrify the area, which of course is the goal. I mean, on the one hand, I give it to the people of Flint who are basically telling them to get fucked. Like, you're going to have to kill us if you're going to want your utopia. But on the other hand, it's like, I cannot look away from the suffering that these people are going through. And you've been there more times than one can count to see. And it's probably been this sort of slow drip. Every time you go back, it gets worse. And yet there are people, as we've communicated with before, and this is why I've always faulted the Democrats more than Republicans. with the Republicans, you know what you're getting. They're not going to deny it. There are Democrats who are denying the reality of what's going on in Flint, that everything's fine. Everything's fine. We fixed the water. You're overreacting. This isn't how it is. And all the while, the only thing that matters that from where I can stand is that they're concerned about the current president and the potential heir apparent, which of course is Governor Whitmer, who we know is going to run for president in 28. And we know that Buttigieg is going to run for governor next. We know how this works. And all the while, I'm looking at this and thinking, you have no humanity if you cannot identify. Again, it's one thing to pretend like you don't give a fuck about what's going on in Gaza because it's on the other side of the world. But this type of shit's happening at home. And you're just either willfully ignorant or you're really just no better than the elected officials are that just want to sweep this shit under the rug.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I could talk for days on this topic. There's so much to say, but from a personal perspective, obviously the story is not about me. It's about the people of Flint, but I'll just share. I was there twice over the last 2 months. I've been there 21 times since 2016, but just talking about recently, I've been there twice. I was there in March and April. In March, we were there to shoot the documentary, which Ty Bayless did an amazing job on. He turned it around in less than a month, which is pretty unheard of in making a documentary. He did it in a month. And it really was not lost on me, and it really hurt me personally. You know, whenever I was going back to Flint, a lot of times I drove there, you know, for various reasons instead of flying. And I'd always just start calling people in Flint, like, hey, I'm coming back into town. You know, when can I do an interview? And in March, when I started doing that, you kind of just forget sometimes. Oh, this person in my phone book died in Flint. And this person died. And this person died. And this person died. And before you know it, like half of the people in my phone book that I have Flint in parentheses have died. And then it really crystallized. That's why at the beginning of this, I said there's a slow moving genocide happening. Some people don't like the comparison, but I think it's true. Because genocide, when we think about it, it's an acute situation. But you have to look at the intent also. The intent is to do heinous things. The intent is to inflict death on a people. Maybe you think it's race related, this and that, but to me, there was intent to harm the people of Flint here. And it's just the bodies, it took longer for the bodies to start piling up. But this documentary will show you Flint right now has one of the fastest cancer rates in America. And it's not from the weather, it's from the water. This didn't get any attention in the media, but at one point, Flint, Michigan had the highest COVID case count in the world. Let me repeat, the world. Why? Because it wasn't just like older people that were especially immunocompromised. Every single person in Flint, Michigan, all ages, became immunocompromised because they were attacked essentially with acid water for years. So it wasn't, you know, you can't use the talking point. Oh, it's just older people that are susceptible. Everyone, kids, middle-aged, younger, middle-aged, were vulnerable and are vulnerable to something like COVID. People are dying, staggering numbers right now. Brain, stomach, and throat cancer is up 300 to 500%. Let me repeat, 300 to 500% in Flint in the years after the 2014 water switch compared to before. People are dying in massive amounts of multiple melanoma. People are dying in massive amounts of kidney disease and failure, liver disease and failure. These are all things that came from the water, and the media is part of this cover up in my view, but the media only focused on lead. There was a lot of other toxins in that water than lead. There was TTHMs. I don't want to get too scientific, but basically they're carcinogenic, cancerous chemicals that form when too much chlorine is added to water. There was bacteria in that water, Legionnaire's disease, which killed a lot of people. There was E. coli found in that water. There was PFAS, which are those forever chemicals that are not just in Flint, they're all over the country. They're causing cancer, they cause female miscarriages. Not to mention General Motors, DuPont, Dow Chemical were dumping their contaminated waste in the Flint River for a century. I mean, anyone with a brain, particularly Flint residents, if everyone was made aware that they were switching the water, because it was not told to everyone. The media did not inform the masses. The government even didn't inform the masses. Oh, we're switching. You're going to get your water from the Flint River. Flint residents would have said, what? The Flint River? That water that looks green? Like, if you go to Flint, the water looks green in many parts of the Flint River. And it's just sad. I mean, again, I'm not trying to make it about me, but just to crystallize it, on the day of the 10th anniversary, which recently passed in April, I was there. Not a lot of people, 30 or 40 people marching. And I could not escape me. I was literally looking, and all I could think about is all the people that would have been there that day, but have died. Every time I go back to Flint, people I became friends with, people I became really close with. They weren't just sources of mine. I became friends, because you would have to be a sociopath to see these people suffering and not want to help them, and they, I believe, valued me because, frankly, I was the only one who gave a damn in the media. I was the only one continuing to come back. I was the only one calling them and taking their calls 5 years later, 6 years, So it's just, how can you call a country a democracy if its citizens are made sick? Let's just say, for argument's sake, it was unintentional. I don't think it was unintentional, but let's even give the government the benefit of the doubt.
Totally intentional.
Let's say it was unintentional, which I don't think it was. How could you call a country a democracy if the citizens are made ill by government decisions, and the government, instead of helping them, covers it up and leaves them to die? I mean, that is what is happening. Let me repeat. People are dying in massive amounts due to cancer and other illnesses through the toxic water that the government intentionally provided them.